you can click on it, and every article we created, I go ahead and log them into certain folders. So like if you want to go back and look at defensive tackle prospects, as we get into training camp, if you want to look at what are the top training camp battles, there'll be a section for that. So it's just a way to keep those organized. And of course, when you land on the homepage here at Patreon in our group, you'll see the latest articles that are written. Okay. So what I did was, which defensive tackle should the Packers select at pick 23? Now I'm going strictly off of our board in terms of narrowing it down to 3. And the 3 that I picked, because I think we would all agree, it's going to be, it's highly unlikely Mason Graham is going to be there when we pick at 23. I think we would all agree with that, right?
Yep.
Next on the list is Walter Nolan on our big board, then Kenneth Grant, and then Derrick Harmon. Okay, Derrick Harmon in the 25 spot, Kenneth Grant in the 19 spot. And then, of course, we had Walter Nolan has now jumped to the number 15 spot. So I took those 3 defensive tackles and just did a little breakdown here. And what we're talking about are 3 key components. And listen, there's a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different analytics we can look at. I tried to narrow it down to 3. And let's kind of look at it and see who we think we would rather have. Just like last night with the wide receivers, guys, before we look at the article, I want to know who is your all's pick between those 3. Walter Nolan, Derrick Harmon, and Kenneth Grant. I'll let you go first, Jacob. But which one, right off the cuff, when you mentioned those 3 names, you had to pick one at 23. Who would be your guy there, man?
Walter
Nolan. Got it.
Sure. Yep.
And for the longest time, we were all on Kenneth Grant, right? I was on him too. Walter would be mine as well. Tim, would you prefer a different one, or do you think Walter Nolan's your guy as well as we go into the study here?
I'm going to be boring. I'm going to say Walter Nolan as well.
Yeah. It's wild too, because like that's the guy we started with. Shout out to Brambo. Thank you for the super chat, but I think that's 2 of 10. When we started off in this process, it was Walter Nolan, and we kind of started to steer off of him, right? It's funny because there was no more football played. It wasn't like he tested bad. It wasn't like there was anything that went wrong for him, but all of a sudden you had these other couple guys that seemed to have leapfrogged him. But let's jump into it here. And I try to keep these short and sweet. I'm trying to get better about that. I think more information is better than less, but I don't want it to be too wordy. All it says is the Green Bay Packers head into the 2025 NFL draft with a clear need to bolster their defensive line, especially after a 2024 season where quarterback pressure and run defense remained inconsistent. Sitting at pick 23, general manager Brian Gutekunst has a chance to land a game-changing defensive tackle. 3 standout prospects, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, and Derrick Harmon, offer distinct skill sets that could address Green Bay's needs using PFF defensive grades, quarterback pressure percentage, and run stop percentage from the 2024 season. Let's break down which defensive tackle might be the best fit. So the contenders, here we go. Walter Nolan, all right, right off the bat. PFF grade in 2024, 88.9 for Walter Nolan. Quarterback pressure percentage, 10%. And they kind of the AI went ahead and threw this into like a roundabout estimate. He may not have had exactly 35 pressures, but the percentage is definitely correct. Okay. 10% pressure rate, run stop percentage, 14%. Scouting report, a dominant 3 tech with elite power and agility at 6'4", 305 pounds, excels at collapsing the pocket, 10% pressure rate, and stuffing runs, 14% stop rate. Leveraging a quick first step and strong hands, his 88.9 grade reflects All-American consistency, making him a disruptive force against both the run and the pass. Shout out to H.E. Solder for the super chat. Those 3 substantially better defensive tackles than what you got to. Really, I'd like to hear them, Solder. Well, who are the other defensive tackles that are better than those 3?
I think that's what he's saying.
No, he's saying that
he's saying those are the 3.
Those 3. Okay. Oh, I got what you're saying.
He's saying Grant, Nolan, and
great for the Packers roster.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. My bad. I misread that. From Kentucky, that happens a lot. So,
I would agree, right? I mean, that's completely. A huge drop off once you get to like Darius Alexander and Tyleek Williams.
I don't think so, Tim.
Oh, really, Al? What do you think, Al?
We had a little practice yesterday when we looked at guys like Peebles and CJ West and my man Thor Griffith. I mean, granted, that's very deep in the draft for Thor, but some of those guys, some of those mid round guys, the reason I've kind of now I'm not saying turn my back on Harmon, but what I've kind of I think I listened to a podcast of Ryan's where he's like, he's only got 1 real year of production. He moved from school, a couple different schools, and really never had any type of production whatsoever. And even the quote unquote year that he had production wasn't that much at all. People are like Chris right there saying Harmon is a slam dunk. I don't know if he is a slam. If you look at just the 1 year out of 5, yeah. If you want to cherry pick that, I think he's a slam dunk. But Walter Nolen was one of the highest recruited guys at that position coming out and has consistently played very well. There's just a little bit of the production scare that I get from Harmon investing in that 20th overall pick. If we can trade back, still get a Harmon or one of those 3 guys or somebody like that, that'd be even better. I'm starting to kind of pull up a little bit, and I've got recency bias. I don't want to just go in and be like, yeah, we got our 3 tech, and then all of a sudden it's like we don't.
Right. Exactly. And the thing with Harmon, like you were saying, he hasn't been as consistent. This year he had a higher quarterback pressure rate, which we'll get to here in just a second. But he also had a bunch of missed tackles. Like, he's not good at bringing down the ball carrier either. Like, you can get there. That's great. You guys remember that with Devontae Wyatt, Tim? I think it was not last season, but the season before, we were like, damn, he gets in the backfield, but he always whiffs on the tackle, right? That's something that Derrick Harmon has had a problem with too. I heard Ryan talking about that as well. So, Tim, anything else you want to add to Walter Nolen here, or anything that H.E. Solder said there in terms of, I believe these would, maybe not year 1, it wouldn't be a huge upgrade, probably, but maybe not. But boy, by year 2 or 3, you expect one of these 3 guys to probably be better than what you're at right now,
Yeah, like you said, I mean, we're basically writing off Mason Graham. We're probably not in the mix for him. So I would go Nolan, then Grant, and then Harmon would be my next 3 in that order. And I do think that, to Jacob's point, there is depth at the position in the draft. I think there's significant enough of a drop between those 3 and then the next batch that, hopefully Walter Nolen is the guy. If not, maybe Derrick Harmon falls in our lap somehow. Yeah.
All right. Next on the list, Kenneth Grant, PFF defensive grade 83.7. All right. Quarterback pressure percentage only 8%. Run stop percentage 10%. Okay. Now that 8%, keep in mind, he is more of a nose tackle. However, he played more 3 tech than he did 1 and nose, right? Because obviously teams play in their nickel more than their base, simply because teams are in 11 personnel more than their typical 21, 12, or 13. So obviously Kenneth Grant, a little bit bigger body. He moves really, really good laterally. There's no 2 ways about that. But here's his scouting report. A massive nose tackle, 6'3", 340, built to anchor against double teams. His 10% run stop rate highlights his ability to clog lanes and hold ground, while an 8% pressure rate shows surprising bursts for his size. At 83.7, he's a run-first specialist with growing pass rush potential. So who did we lose? TJ Slayton, right? It almost feels like that dude, I can see where someone would make a case that, hey, this might be the guy. That way you can kind of fill TJ Slayton's role of that run stuffer while he, brings on that pass rush skill. Obviously, 8% was 2% better than Kenny Clark last year. So you'd already, if that were to translate to the game, to the NFL, he would be a better pass rusher than Kenny. I don't think he would once he got on the NFL field, at least right now. What do y'all think about Kenneth Grant here?
I mean, I kind of like what Ron says here. He goes, he has the most upside of this crew, in his opinion. I'm not sure if that's overall upside or if it's more to, I mean, if you want just a replacement for TJ Slayton, a guy that's going to be a steady Eddie in the middle there to stop and plug up that run game, I think that Kenneth Grant is probably that guy that would ascend to the top of the pack. If you're looking for somebody that's more of a pass rusher type, that's going to be a little more kind of twitchy, I'd say Derrick Harmon. If you want the all-around best of both, I go Walter Nolen. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I like it. Tim, what about you, big dog?
Yep, I'm co-signing all of that. I probably want Walter Nolen first, but yeah, if we're looking for that run stopper, replace TJ, I'd go Kenneth Grant for sure. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Walter Nolen is probably the best bet out of the batch.
Yeah, and not only are you just replacing TJ Slayton, who obviously didn't play a whole lot of snaps last year, but if we're moving on from Kenny next year, what has Kenny been doing? He's been playing 1 tech. He's been playing nose. Many people don't even understand that. He was the one that was predominantly playing nose last year and occupying those double teams. So if Kenneth Grant, you bring him on this year, Kenny continues to start. If we end up moving on from Kenny next year, or if he agrees to restructure that contract, great. You got two really strong noses. Well, Kenneth Grant could potentially step in there for Kenny if he leaves, and now you've got Devontae Wyatt if you decide to bring him back. Devontae Wyatt was hands down your best pass rush, interior pass rusher last year. Hands down. There's no questions. I think it was like a 9% pressure rate at defensive tackle, right? So that kind of bends right into that mold of, okay, this dude will step right in. Now, that's not to say that Carl Brooks and Kobe Wooden didn't play any nose last year. They did. There was times that when Kenny came off the field, they put them in a one tech. Devontae Wyatt, the majority of the time, did play a 3 or a 4 tech, like a 4-hour 3 tech, or even whatever, maybe even straight up on a 2 at certain points of the season. So I can see both sides of the coin. I don't think either of these three guys are bad picks. I want to be very, very clear. If someone disagrees with us and says, hey, Derrick Harmon's the dude, I can see where you can make that case, right? So next is Derrick Harmon, PFF grade 83.9, quarterback pressure percentage 16%. So he's got the highest pressure percentage of all these players that we mentioned, right? Run stop percentage 10%. Scouting report, a relentless pass rusher, 6'5", 320, with a 16% pressure rate, leading all defensive tackles with 55 pressures. His length and explosiveness disrupts quarterbacks, while a 10% run stop rate shows solid run defense. Graded at an 83.9. He's a high upside 3 tech with a knack for big plays. Now, again, the big thing that Ryan was talking about was the missed tackle percentage. I was trying to get PFF pulled up so I could give you the exact number, but that seems to be his weak spot. Is you can get into the backfield, but what we always talk about, how you arrive at confrontation, Tim, determines how you handle confrontation. Yep. And if you don't arrive under control and you miss tackles, that didn't do us a damn bit of good. You getting in the backfield if you're just going to whiff on the tackle. And that's what we've seen with Devontae Wyatt the first 2 years in the league. He seemed to fix that a little bit last year, but still not where it needs to be. But what do you think about Derrick Harmon here, Tim? Anything you want to add to that scouting report there?
I think to your point, that comes with experience, right? So when you're dealing with a guy, coming out of the draft, if that's already a concern, it's something that you have to try and coach out of his game, right? We've seen it with not just edge rushers, but we've seen it with our linebackers, and we've seen it with defensive tackles too. You get the penetration, you get the rush, and you're not poised and you're not under control, and you wash yourself out of the play. And it's frustrating. I mean, we can talk about old Tommy Cutlets, right? Lighten us up. And, we make good quarterbacks look great. Bad quarterbacks look good when you're over pursuing or you're not disciplined in your pass rush. So,
Tommy Cutlets.
Yeah. So you gotta keep that in mind. But, Derrick Harmon, to me, like, to echo your point, Clayton, like, I don't think either one of these three are bad picks. I think we all have our preferences or our favorites, but, if you're talking about taking, defensive line in the first round, you can't go wrong with these guys, any of them, honestly, at this point.
You know what? To kind of get on the Derrick Harmon defense case right here, when I pulled up his little bit of a deep diver grades here, so he was in Michigan State for the first 3 years. First 2 did not go necessarily great, but he did not have a lot of snaps. The second year he did, and he had a 59.8. Just didn't look like he performed well. It might have been a little bit too large for him. But the next year in 2023, he played almost 500 snaps. He had an 83.9 grade, run defense grade of 77.4. Again, the tackling grade was horrible. Or I'm sorry, this was last year in 2024 at Oregon. 83.9. Run defense grade of 77.4, but the tackling grade of 29.8, a pass rush grade of 88.8. Again, we love that, but the tackling grade, guys, he had a 27% missed tackle rate. Yikes. 27% missed tackle rate.
Put that into perspective, Jacob. Out of 100 plays, let's say there's 100 times, right, that he had an opportunity to make a tackle.
That's 27.
What's that?
That's close to 27.
That's a lot, right? Could you imagine? I mean, seriously, could you imagine Packers Nation seeing that dude miss tackles every game in the backfield, and he's your 23rd overall pick? Like, I don't hate the pick because, like Chris and many others said, look, we need a pass rush, but man, that's huge. I'm glad you pulled that up.
Yeah, so. And the pass rush is he's consistent. His pass rush grades all through high school or college, even when he was playing limited snaps, the lowest grade he's ever had is a 68. but that tackle grade has been consistent as well. The best he ever had was 2021, a 72. Otherwise, it's been a 40, a 55, and a 29. That is real bad, guys. Real bad.
That's cheeks. That is cheeks.
That's cheeks. Yeah.
All right. Moving along. So we just put a little comparison summary here. So here it is stacked up against one another. PFF grade. Walter Nolen has the highest PFF grade at 88.9. Derrick Harmon is second at 83.9. Kenneth Grant at 83.7. However, if you do look at the consistency factor, Derrick Harmon, we just told you, not near as consistent across the last 3 years in college as where Walter Nolen was. Quarterback pressure percentage. Walter Nolen at 10%, Kenneth Grant at 8%. Derrick Harmon leads the way at 16%. That's a big margin there too. Boy, here's the other thing. When someone has a high quarterback pressure percentage, but also a high missed tackle percentage, they're playing out of control. You guys remember on Chalk Talk, it wasn't this year. I feel like it got better, but the year before this last season, it was 2023, how Devontae Wyatt was just whopping people out of the play, his own teammates, because he wasn't playing under control. He was just completely out of control. That's what you typically see when you get those two metrics, those two stats merging together. And again, it's about collectively, how can the defense play as one? And when you got one dude who's literally rushing into other people's rush lanes, that's a big no-no.
That was Brenton Cox Jr. coming out of college. He had no discipline. He was just a freaking bat out of a cave, just a shot out of a cannon. Like you said, didn't care if he messed up anybody else's progression, their stunts, or whatever their progress was. He was A to B. And I feel like that's the biggest part of his game, where they've at least coached the selfishness out of him. So I wonder if we could do that with a guy,
Yeah.
If that's the biggest knock on these guys. I think that maybe could be a little slice of humble pie when they get into the league.
And to defend Kenneth Grant here for just a second, when you're playing that nose, you're getting eat up by double teams a lot more. So when you see his run stop percentage of 10%, you're not necessarily expecting the nose to make the run stop. They're typically occupying a double team. They're eating two bodies so other guys can come in and make the play. That's much different than Derrick Harmon and Walter Nolen both. Run stop percentage. Walter Nolen leads the way at 14%, Kenneth Grant at 10%, Derrick Harmon at 10%. So they tied out there. I was trying to pull up. I've got Derrick Harmon's pulled up, Jacob. I was trying to get to Kenneth Grant's because I want to see what his missed tackle rate was. Actually, I think I finally got it to pop here. Maybe
you said you want Grant's or Nolan's?
Grant's first here.
Okay.
I've got it right. I think I've got it pulled up now. I want to take a quick glance and see, because he may be just as bad. You know what I mean? In terms of missed tackle rate, I don't think he is, but let's take a quick glance here.
No, that's pretty freaking good.
Cow.
Bruh. That's
Here's the guy.
5.9% missed tackle rate for Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, his whole college career is an average of 4.6%. And that's substantial snaps, guys. I'm talking, wow, okay. That just swayed a little bit more in his position for me there.
And that's why it's important to look at the whole picture and not just fall in love with one statistic, one metric, right? I'm going to Walter Nolen now, and let's see what his missed tackle rate was, because I feel like he was really, really solid as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kenneth Grant has a lesser one. Look at here. Yeah, Walter Nolen.
Wow.
4.3%.
Did you look at 2023 and 2022?
Mm-hmm.
What the heck? Yeah, 2023, he had almost 400 snaps. He has a missed tackle rate of 0.
That's crazy.
He didn't miss a tackle in 2023, almost playing 400 snaps.
Here's the guy.
And notice we haven't mentioned sacks, right? We haven't talked about sacks. Listen, sacks are important, don't get me wrong, but when you got to – it's how the cake is baked, right? Like, how are they getting those sacks is important. You could have a guy who gets 8 sacks but only have a 6% pressure rate, and then you got a guy who finishes with 6 sacks and he's got a 15% pressure rate, right? There's a lot that goes into that as well. So, all right, so here's what the AI says, breaking it down. Defensive PFF grade. Nolan's 88.9 edges out Harmon's 83.9 and Grant's 83.7, signaling all-around excellence. Harmon's close second suggests high impact, while Grant's grade fits his run-first role. Quarterback pressure percentage, right? Harmon 16% stands alone, doubling Grant's 8% and outpacing Nolan's 10%. His 55 pressures dwarf the others, making him a quarterback's nightmare. Run stop percentage. Nolan's 14% leads with Grant and Harmon tied at 10%. Nolan's 42 stops highlights his run stuff and dominance, while Grant's 35 stops anchor the line. All right, it says fit for the Packers. The Packers' 2024 defense struggled to generate consistent interior pressure, often relying on edge rushers, and face issues stopping the run in key moments. At pick 23, the choice depends on priority. Walter Nolen is the safest pick. All right, I won't go back through the stats. It's just going to repeat them. It says he's a plug-and-play starter who could anchor the line for years, though his draft stock might push him higher than 23. Derrick Harmon, the pass rush specialist. It says I'll just read the whole thing. His 16% pressure rate, 55 pressures, could transform the Packers' ability to disrupt quarterbacks from the inside, pairing perfectly with their edge threats at 83.9 and 10% run stops. He's no slouch against the run either. Ideal if pressure is the priority. I think that's why many people are picking Derrick Harmon, is because they're prioritizing pressure. And listen, that's not a silly way to think. I'm just going to tell you right now. Based off what we've seen last year, the run defense improved tremendously, right? Still got a long way to go, but they improved a lot. You would say the run defense was the strength of the defense, obviously, compared to the pass rush. So that kind of makes sense why someone would want to go with Derrick Harmon. It doesn't mean that either of these three are a bad pick. It's just simply, what are you looking for specifically? I'm looking for the safest pick. You guys have heard me say that over and over and over. Yeah. I am boring in that regard. I don't want to roll the dice. I want the dude who's going to do both well and hopefully do it well for the next 10 years. That's what I'm looking for. So the verdict says, if Walter Nolen is available at 23, he's the pick. His blend of run stopping and pressure with an elite 88.9 grade screams cornerstone defensive tackle. However, his stock may place him in the top 15, leaving Derrick Harmon as the more realistic option. Harmon's 16% pressure rate and 83.9 grade offer immediate pass rush juice, addressing a glaring 2024 weakness, while his 10% run stops hold the line. Kenneth Grant at 83.7 feels like a day two fit unless the Packers trade back. That is not correct there, sir, in the AI department.
I was going to say.
Yeah, but for pick 23, Derrick Harmon edges out as the best balance of need and availability, but keep an eye on Nolan if he slides. Gutekunst can't go wrong with either. They're both upgrades over the 2024 interior. So there you go. It's saying Walter Nolan probably not going to be there. If Derrick Harmon's there, of the three, that's the dude to go with. So it does kind of feel like I'm drifting away from Kenneth Grant, even though our board suggested otherwise for a long time, right? Kenneth Grant is now in the 19 spot. He's still higher than Derrick Harmon. So he's in the 19 spot and Derrick Harmon's in the 25 spot. So, all right, based off all that, any final thoughts on that topic right there, gents?
I definitely agree with the first part of the verdict. If Walter Nolan's available at 23, he's the pick. That's the guy.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Tim, do you think you would still go Kenneth Grant if it is between him and Derrick Harmon, or do you after reading this article, seeing the kind of everything compared?
Oh, I mean, if it's between Harmon and Grant, I would. Yeah. I'd probably lean towards Kenneth Grant.
Would you? Okay.
But I want Walter Nolan or bust for sure in the first round if we can.
Yeah, definitely. And if both of those guys are gone, if both Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant are gone, I'm okay with Harmon. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like any one of these guys is going to help our football team, but clearly we have a preference. And, not only is Walter Nolan the safest pick, but I think he's probably got the highest ceiling out of the three.
Got it. Good stuff, man. All right. That's going to do it for that segment. Now let's hit, I think we got some breaking news here from Coach Lynn, don't we, boys? Somebody hit that for me real quick. Is that breaking news down there, Jacob, that you marked?